With big fixture swings and lots of FPL managers looking to hit that wildcard button in game week 12, I thought I'd take a look at some of my favourite differentials for the next few game weeks. Now, before we get into today's video, I just want to say a massive thank you to you guys for all the support that you've shown me over the past few days. I have been out, obviously, with a little bit of tonsillitis. It's meant I've not been able to film. I've pretty much been just bedridden for about a week. I am hopefully back now and will be making kind of continuous videos over the international break. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for all your kind comments throughout that period as well. And hopefully, like I said, we are back for a continued period. And hopefully there's no more bouts of illness. Let's hope that's the case. Starting off, let's take a look at some of the highest point scorers over the past 5 game weeks, and I thought this would be a good outlier to potentially see where there might be a few differentials potentially lurking. Obviously, Evan Nilsson is the first name that massively stands out for me as well. Delap's still been doing pretty well, obviously, despite my slander towards him as well. Welbeck and of course Jorginho Rutter as well, also 2 names that we might potentially be touching on in today's video as well. There's other people like Damsgaard down the bottom as well that also are going under the radar, and Ashley Young. So some differentials definitely have been performing over the past 5 game weeks as well. Now I feel it's time to find that next crop of players that potentially could be the cusp of, you know, maybe a couple thousand in terms of rank gain, or maybe even a couple mil if you get on them right and nice and early as well. So let's start off. Let's dive into some of these players then. So first up, like I said, we were going to obviously have to talk about Pele at some point. The Brighton fixtures coming up are absolutely stupendous, and I definitely want to get in on this attack as well. They've been really good under Hertzler as well. Really positive in terms of chances created and in terms of their XG created as well so far this season. João Pedro is back from a kind of longer term injury, so that's great to see. We've got an absolutely fantastic enabling player at 5.4 million. I know a lot of people that are potentially maybe on a wild card this week. He could be one of the players that you do go and take a look at, because he could be an absolute steal at that price point as well. On penalties, again, he showed what he's massively capable of as well. I know his stats do look a little bit kind of skewed compared to Welbeck's, but you just have to remember the limited amount of minutes that he has played compared to Danny Welbeck as well. My only concern with João Pedro, of course, is the competition that Rutter has kind of posed over the past few weeks, because he has been really good, and I think it is potentially going to be a little bit hard for the manager to drop Rutter straight away and put João Pedro straight back in. So maybe he might be one that might need a few more game weeks to potentially assess. However, if I was on a wild card and budget was a little bit stretched, I think he could be the great third forward option at that 5.4 million price range for me personally. Next up is going to be Danny Welbeck, a guy who seems to be able just to roll back the years this season, it seems. 4.94 XG for him as well. Plenty of shots, plenty of those coming in the box as well. And like I said, with some absolutely stellar fixtures coming up for Brighton over the next few weeks, could be a real gem. Now, for me personally, I would prefer somebody like Acuna or a Visser. However, Danny Welbeck could be one of the players that I do look to potentially replace Visser with around game week 14, game week 15, if he is still, of course, seeing decent minutes, and of course, if he's continuing to still put in positive displays under new management as well. But 2 Brighton boys that I definitely think we should be considering over the next few weeks. Let's move on to the next set of players, kind of keeping, I would say, within that cheap budget theme, because that's what a lot of people are going to be looking at in terms of their differentials, and this is more towards the defensive aspects. Obviously, I've outlined 2 kind of below 4.5 million defenders. Hall had a price rise last night, so he's up to 4.4, but still a really good price for him. Has been playing pretty consistent minutes as well over the past few weeks, so that's a big tick. Newcastle's fixtures looking really good, minus that game week 14 game against Liverpool, so obviously we'll have to have players rotate around him, but that's what I think a lot of us are in this position at the moment, where we do just have the cheap defenders. When they have bad fixtures, we do obviously just rotate them with our other kind of 4 or 4.5 million playing defenders. And again, Lewis Hall and Newcastle definitely fit into that category as well. Not in too much in terms of his attacking attacking data to kind of write home about, but for 4.4 million, I'm not going to argue at a player at that price point. And again, one on the wild card if you are have that chip active this week as well. Next up is going to be Levi Colwill. He is currently flagged within the game, so do just make sure that he is fully fit and available before you obviously go and select this guy. But Chelsea have got this incredible fixture run. I was looking at in terms of Cole Palmer. Realistically, you could probably hold Colwill all the way up until game week 28. There's some bad fixtures occasionally thrown in there. However, in terms of longevity, in terms of this fixture run, like I said, you could realistically hold this guy till game week 28. So again, one of those picks that you could just hold on a wild card if you are looking for a 4.5 million defender, or again, if you are looking for just one of those cheap defenders to obviously go and slot into your side and hope that they can kind of hopefully pick up some clean sheets along the way, then I definitely think Levi Colwill, again, could be one of those players that a lot of people are getting their eyes on, and again, could be a really, really good steal up in that price bracket. Kind of continuing with that theme is going to be Kirkes as well from Bournemouth. I think he could be a really, really good player at 4.4 million as well. Has picked up a few attacking returns over the past few weeks, as we see here, with 2 assists. My only concern with him potentially is there has been a hell of a lot of rotation within the Bournemouth lineup. A lot of the predictors are really, really struggling this season to kind of nail down which players will be playing for Bournemouth, which ones won't be playing, and I do feel that is a little bit of concern with, of course, a busy Christmas period coming up. However, his minutes over the past few weeks have been very, very consistent. Does have a slight attacking threat down that left-hand side, but overall for me, I probably would prefer the last 2 options I did select. I just think if maybe you want to go even further down the differential path, or again, you may be looking for another alternative in terms of the cheap defenders, then Bournemouth and Kirkes could be that route to points. But like I said, there is a lot of chopping and changing from Iriola with a busy Christmas period coming up as well. He could be one of the first casualties that potentially could impact your side. So maybe do just be a little bit cautious of that one. Same goes with Evan Nielsen as well. He has been playing fairly consistent minutes and starting games. Again, though, could see some droppage over the Christmas period. Again, his data is looking really, really good. And from an eye test perspective as well, is a player that is massively passing that. 5 attacking returns, should I say, for him over the course of the start of this season. We've also got to factor in that he did miss a penalty as well. I think if he was on penalties, this would make him much more of an appealing asset to go for, just down to the fact that he doesn't quite see out 90 minutes at the moment. I think if he had penalties, was still playing around this 70 to 80-ish minute mark that he was currently reaching, I would be a lot more keen on him. However, with him not having penalties, I do feel that potentially demerits him a little bit, and when you can get a João Pedro for 5.4, I do think that makes him a slightly more interesting asset because of that penalty peel for me personally within my side. But I still think Evan Nielsen could be a great pickup. He's in a little bit of a purple patch at the moment. He's scoring goals for a very, very attack-minded side in Bournemouth this season as well. They've looked really, really good in terms of their expected goals and overall creativity. So again, could be a team that really we want to get our teeth into with some good fixtures coming up for the Cherries as well. But do be wary, there is a lot of rotation happening within their side at the moment, so maybe might be one to kind of see how the Christmas period pans out with that rotation. Let's move on. Let's take a look at 2 potential Mbeumo replacements a little bit further down the line. You could obviously go and bring Anthony Gordon in this week. I don't have a problem with that. There's some pretty decent fixtures coming up. Then, of course, in game week 14, they do play Liverpool, so that one's a little bit of a tricky one. Anthony Gordon and Jarrod Bowen, I would say, have had kind of mid-ish starts to the season. They've not really lit the world alight. They've been okay, they've been pretty average, but they've not really hit the heights that we expect, and from what we saw from both of these guys, should I say, last season as well. The interesting thing with Jarrod Bowen is I've outlined him for a few weeks now as my potential Mbeumo replacement around game week 14, game week 15. That's where West Ham's fixtures take a big upswing for around 5 game weeks, and of course Brentford's over that period do get a little bit more difficult. Once those fixtures are done, then you could go straight back to Brian Mbeumo as well, because I do think he will struggle during this more difficult period for Brentford. Obviously you could keep him across that period, but I think the wise move might be potentially to look at one of these boys in Anthony Gordon or Jarrod Bowen. Jarrod Bowen for me is the one they faced both Leicester and Ipswich across that period as well, and he's one of those players that can be super explosive. I owned him for his hat-trick last season as well. He is one of these players that can put up mega point scores across the board as well, so just bear that in mind. Around game week 14, West Ham's fixtures really do pick up. Obviously, if you're on a wild card and maybe thinking about going without Mbeumo, Anthony Gordon might be the man for the next two, then potentially look to make that switch to Jared Bowen, should I say, in game week 14 as well. So these two, I'm not like absolutely dying to go and get them or bring them into my teams, but I think Bowen, if he puts in impressive performances over the next two, maybe even if Lopetegui gets sacked, I could really be looking at jumping into that West Ham team around game week 4, and maybe a few of their other assets could also start to interest me as we do get closer to that good fixture run coming up for the Hammers as well. But a lot's got to change before we obviously go and invest within that side. Finishing up, let's take a look at predicted points across the next 5 game weeks, see if there are any standout picks that we've obviously not mentioned in today's video as well. Alexander Isak was a player I wanted to cover, but he is currently around 14% owned, and I didn't think that really fitted into the hidden gems or differential category for me, but still could be a great player. I think he is going to be on a lot of people's radars for those potentially looking to switch off Erling Haaland as well. Could be a nice way to kind of keep funds towards the front end of that of your squad. So again, could be a decent one. Son is currently under 10% owned, and it's quite interesting that he's quite high up on this list as well in terms of those projected points. I think him and Spurs have looked a little bit lackadaisical in my personal opinion over the past few weeks, so I'm probably not going to go near Son for a few more weeks. KDB as well entering the menu again with Manchester City still having some fairly decent-ish fixtures. He could be a potential gamble, but for me, I think we're going to need to see a lot more from City as a side in terms of their overall creativity. João Pedro we've obviously spoke about on this list already as well, so great to see that the Fantasy Football Hub is also identifying him as another potential differential asset. The other ones quite highly owned and probably not worth, like I said, similar situation with KDB and Foden, not really worth touching until City kind of look back to their best. At the moment they do look a little bit lethargic, not really a team I want to go and invest too much of my time or my assets or resources into at the moment. That was my hidden gems video. Let me know what you think of it down in the comment section below. Like I said, thank you for everybody that has stuck around during this spate of illness. Hopefully we can be back up and making plenty more content for you guys. If you did enjoy it and you are new around here, make sure you're hitting that like button and of course hitting the subscribe button. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in game week 12.